Can color affect sporting performance? Tiger Woods certainly thinks so. He always wears red on Sundays because his mom once told him it's his power color. He's not the only one who believes in the power of colors. Sir Alex Ferguson once made Manchester United switch out of their grey jerseys at halftime because he claimed his players struggled to pick each other out. In speed skating, however, teams think that the fastest color is blue. So they changed the uniforms before the 2018 Olympics, even Norway, which had a whole history with legendary red suits. But is all this just superstition, or can color actually make a difference? And which color should you pick the next time you start a game in order to maximize your winning chances? This has been a hotly debated topic among athletes and journalists for years, so let's look at the science. In nature, colors do play an important role. For example, with these little birds. A study showed that female zebra finches prefer to mate with male birds who wear red bands around the leg. And they avoid blue or green banded males. So for the birds, wearing red leads to reproductive success. But how about athletic success? Not of the birds, but human athletes. The most influential study was published in 2005 in Nature, a very prestigious scientific journal, and has the telling title, "Red Enhances Human Performance in Contests." It builds on the bird study and the theory that the color red is a testosterone-dependent signal of dominance. If birds signal more dominance when they're wearing a red leg band, athletes wearing a red shirt might get a higher place in the pecking order as well. After all, anger is associated with a reddening of the skin due to increased blood flow, and a red-faced, angry-looking athlete might reflect dominance, intimidate the opponent, and influence the outcome of the match, race, or fight. To test that theory, the scientists looked at combat sports at the Olympic Games in 2004. It was almost as if someone had designed an experiment for the scientists. Athletes in taekwondo, boxing and wrestling were issued red or blue protective gear at random. If color has no effect, the number of winners wearing blue and red should be more or less the same. But the scientists found out that for all 4 competitions, athletes wearing red consistently and significantly won more fights than athletes wearing blue. The strongest effects were measured in close matches, with athletes wearing red winning 6 out of 10 times. Obviously, colors are only one small factor among more important ones like skill. But if all other factors were fairly equal, red presumably tipped the balance. And in today's professional sport, every little detail matters, and every tiny advantage can make the difference between winning or losing. With millions of prize and sponsorship money, the stakes are high. But it gets even more interesting. Another study proposed that referees are affected by color as well. The theory was that the referees would evaluate identical situations differently depending on the athlete's shirt color. So the scientists did what we like to do at Athletic Interest: get After Effects up and running. They changed clips of combat sports, so the identical scenes could be shown with athletes wearing either blue or red. They then showed the videos to referees and asked them to award points. And the referees saw red. Athletes with the red protective gear received 13% more points than competitors wearing blue. When the blue gear was digitally transformed to red, the points awarded by the referees increased. And when a red gear was transformed in After Effects to look blue, the athlete suddenly was awarded fewer points. For those of you who don't care about combat sports, let's look at football. The study about the 2004 Olympics also looked at the Euro that year. The 5 teams that wore predominantly red shirts did better when wearing red than when wearing a different shirt color. This does not mean that a bad team can reverse its fortunes by wearing red. If you're hopeless, one author said, then wearing red isn't going to make you start winning. A separate team of academics made another startling claim in 2008, that teams wearing red are more successful in English football between 1946 and 2003. Although more than 1/3 of the teams played in blue shirts and only 23% in red, the teams in red won 60% of the titles, 3 times as many as those in blue. Maybe that's the reason why the German national team broke a long-lasting tradition in 2006 and introduced red shirts. A psychologist even praised the positive benefits of the color when the shirts were revealed. Former Bayern Munich player Sandro Wagner might have listened to him. He almost always played in red boots. The study even found an effect for derby rivals. Teams wearing red won more at home and had a higher average league position compared to rivals in the same city who wore other colors. So is the reason that Bayern, United and Liverpool have more titles than TSV, City and Everton simply down to their shirt colors? Could the color of an Olympic uniform be the difference between winning the gold or silver? It might sound plausible, maybe even enticing, but the beauty of science is that people always want to prove each other wrong. And so a new study lets the red house of superiority implode. Researchers reanalyzed the previous studies and found that some of the conclusions are flawed when you include all matches between 92 and 2018. They also conducted a more elaborate study and looked at the data of matches from England, Germany, Portugal, France, Netherlands and Italy over the last 20 years. Overall, with the statistics that we have, it's a lot more likely that there aren't any color effects, explains one of the report's authors, Dr. Philipp Förley. So it all sounds like a good story that wearing red can make a difference, but it isn't really supported by the data. And even the legendary bird study is under scrutiny. For decades, it was considered proven that males with red rings are more successful with the ladies than males with other, mostly green rings. In total, there have been 39 publications since the 80s, and the majority confirmed the red ring thesis. However, a new study from 2018 that used more data than all of the previous studies says that the larger sample shows that there is no effect at all. For optimal brood care, the author said, it is important that the partners get along well, and not beauty or the color of the ring. That's exactly what someone with a green ring would say. So where does that leave us? Based on present findings, the evidence for uniform colors influencing the outcome of athletic competitions is weak. More investigation is required to prove the effect, if it does exist at all. While it might be inaccurate to say that color adds a physical enhancement to athletic performance, we can't deny its psychological effect. In the same way that music can change a mood, color can as well. And that can affect behavior. Not only yours, but also that of your opponent. The psychology of a uniform can be just as important as its physics. So the next time you start a game, what color do you pick? To help with your decision, the mystery of the blue race suits and the Norwegian speed skating team was debunked. It turned out that blue is not actually the faster color, but the color of a Norwegian seafood company. That happened to be the team's sponsor. If you enjoy nerding out on sports, business and culture, make sure to subscribe to our channel and check out our newsletter. Once a week, we break down the business behind sports and talk about the biggest deals, stories and general madness of the week.